bunny back in the box.
I knew you was a punk, and I was right. You been playing us all along. You a free man.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.
The Big O and Dukes Network presents Con Aircast with Blab and Big Stuff.
It's the flight that you thought might be delayed forever, but no. Flight number 2002 of the Con Aircast. Yes, the Jailbird is in the air again, headed towards the Vegas Strip. I am your host, Chad Dukes, of course, joined as always by my pal and co-host and executive producer, Drab T-Shirt, punching his microphone in excitement for the second episode of the Con Aircast. Hello, Blabber.
Hey, Dukes. How are you, bud?
I realize it's probably confusing to people that are stumbling across this podcast. In the intro, it says, with Blab and Big Stuff. What you need to know is that the two gentlemen that are at the helm of the Con Aircast, at the helm of the Jailbird, as it were men of many nicknames.
It doesn't really matter. That's all you need to know.
It doesn't. It's stupid and it's dumb branding by us, but who knows? Great to have you aboard again, convicts. Drab, let's start with this. The response has been amazing. And I won't say overwhelming because I think you and I knew this was something that was going to be pretty cool. And it's not like we've been asked to go on The Tonight Show.
Not yet, at least.
Yeah, I think we're building towards that. I did get turned down for a radio interview on the morning show on 98 Rock. Got told to no go on that. So, trying to drum up a little press this week, trying to drum up a little interest. Got told to pound sand. Of course, not my buddy, Funny Justin, who does mornings on 98 Rock, is a funny comedian, huge Con Air fan. I think we're going to get him on the show next week. Said, hey, man, I'd love to help promote. Went to the program director and immediately got the old Stone Cold Steve Austin double middle finger. So other than that, though, Blab, you got to be happy with all the reviews, all the subscriptions are on the front page of iTunes. I believe we got as high as 11th on the TV and film podcast rankings on iTunes. It's been pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I'm confident in Flight 2 here today will get us to inside the top 10. We were very close on the first episode. We were all over the front page of iTunes on the new and noteworthy section.
I think we're still there.
Very exciting, and thank you very much for those who have downloaded, subscribed, and left a review.
And, yeah, a couple things that we should make clear. We are a show about Con Air. That's not a bit. That's it. There's no shtick. There's no other foot to drop. This is a show about the movie Con Air, and we're going to keep doing it, and there's going to be more episodes. And, no, we are not going to run out of things to talk about. So get ready for that. And also, I say this on all podcasts, Drab, because I feel like people don't get it. I was looking at the I host a radio show here in Washington, D.C. on a sports station. I do an afternoon drive show. And I was checking out my reviews on iTunes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't checked them out in a while. And I realized nobody is leaving reviews. Nobody's leaving comments. It's just almost dead. And then I checked. You're the executive producer of the morning show on the same station here in D.C. I checked their reviews, and there's 10 million. And I realized you got to, the days are gone of people just saying, hey, I like this show, I'm going to review it. You got to beat people over the head. So here's what I would say. Show don't cost nothing. We don't want it to cost nothing. What you can do is you can subscribe wherever, you're listening to this from, and you can leave a review, right? I mean, that's easy to do. It's you click the 5 stars. You're at, hey, dig the show. That's really all that it's got to be. And that helps us exponentially, Drab, because the more that we climb on these charts, the more random clown shoes see the logo and say, wow, I like the movie Con Air. Is this a show about Con Air? Then they're listening.
And there were actually numerous reviews inside of iTunes that people just stumbled across it. So you're doing good work. Just keep it up, and we thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Plenty to get to on the show today. Ty Granderson Jones is going to join us. And for those of you that don't know who he is, he played Blade in Con Air, one of the convicts, shirtless, in the plane, and had one of the more memorable lines, I think, Blabber. And I swear to God, it's going to sound like I'm saying this just because we're having him on. I have laughed about the line that he cuts in this movie my whole life, since 1997. And, of course, once you hear it, it'll be brought right back to the front of your conscience.
Yeah, Ty only has, I think, one line in the entire film, And "Shut the F up, you freak, we're going to die" is a top line that stands out almost more than any of the other lines in the film, and it's one of the most quotable movies of all time. So an excellent job by him.
And because Garland Green's sitting there singing, he's got the whole world in his hands. And as you put out there, Blabber, one of the things that I had a chance to sit down with Brian Truitt. He'll be on the show as well. He is USA Today entertainment writer, and he has a love of Con Air. And we talked a lot about the movie, and it went in a lot of different directions. That interview, of course, will be available in our iTunes feed, so you can listen to that as well. But we'll feature some of that today, and we'll use that to spawn conversation. But you apparently were the MVP of the first episode, Blab, because you turned people on to the theory, I guess, that you'd stumbled across, that Garland Green, when he is the plane, of course, has landed in Carson City, and he is just wandering around and just happens to find a little girl having a tea party, that was something that he imagined. That wasn't something that was actually happening. I had never heard of that, and people seem to be very impressed by that.
Well, I wish I could take credit for it, but doing a little research on Con Air, I was deep into the underbelly of the internet, and I don't know where I read it at.
Where the small weapons arsenal is?
Yeah, where somebody hypothesized that as well, and I rewatched the film and thought about it. I said, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Why is the girl there? They're out in the middle of nowhere. There's no family around. Mm-hmm. This girl's made up, and he doesn't kill her. Garland Green would kill her if she was real.
Hello, Bob. Want to come over for dinner? Are you sick?
Why do you ask?
You look sick.
I am sick.
You take medicine?
There is no medicine for what I have.
But your whole argument the first episode is that Garland Green is actually a good guy, which I disagree with.
Well, I think he's misunderstood. And when he makes that quote about we're just waiting to die, hope we make it to the toilet in time, it makes a lot of sense. He's a madman who says something that clicks with everybody who watches that film and says, God damn it, what am I doing with my life? This guy's not so bad. They crafted his character perfectly where he's such an evil person. We don't see any of the evil stuff that he does.
Right.
We don't see him wearing a little girl's head as a hat for across 3 states.
You know what? Maybe it's symbolic, too, because Nick Cage is a good person, and he is being treated not like a good person because of where he is. You know what I mean? Like, they're all on this plane. They're all prisoners. They're all convicts. And that's why they keep kind of reinforcing that. Maybe that's a theme. You know, maybe that's a theme that we haven't picked up on until now, is that it doesn't matter if Baby O's a good person or if Cyrus the Virus is the worst person on Earth. You're on that plane, and you're going to get treated like a convict depending on who's the guy with the only pistol on the plane.
Yeah, I know we've talked to MC Gainey last episode, and he kind of talked about Swamp Thing, what he believes his character is. But on the surface, they do a great job in this movie of just doing a very basic setup of each character. Nick Cage is a good guy who was wrongfully imprisoned. Cyrus the Virus, a ruthless madman. Johnny 23, rapist. Garland Green, serial killer. Bedlam is another ruthless madman.
Well, he's a psychopathic killer.
Psychopathic killer, okay? I mean, his name gives it away.
I treat them like baseball cards almost. Like they're just...
That's exactly what it is.
That's what it is, right?
That is exactly what it is.
We should make Con Air baseball cards. Why wouldn't we do that? There's a bunch I want to get to. I want to start with this. Who are you rooting for in Con Air, Drab? Who are you pulling for? Who's the guy you're like, this is the guy's story that I want to see succeed? Is it just Nicolas Cage?
No.
Is it just John Cusack?
Oh, I don't care about John Cusack. I mean, he's fun.
I love John Cusack in the movie,
say Larkin.
But you don't care. His character is more of the side dish.
That would be loquacious, verbose, effusive.
How about chatty?
Right, because he's annoying as well. There's 2 characters that really appeal to me in this movie, and that's Cameron Poe and that's Garland Green.
Okay.
The guys that I root for. And Swamp Thing. I should say Swamp Thing as well, because he's a lot of fun. Other than that, I'm kind of rooting for everybody to die.
See, that's weird. And I think that's maybe your wiring and how it's different from mine. I'm rooting for all the criminals to get away. Like, I want them to be able to have the dirty naked freaks and the umbrella drinks and everything the Diamond Dog is promising them. And the plane, like, I want that plane to fly to the Caribbean and land, and they all walk off, and they all take off the orange jumpsuits, and they put on the Hawaiian shirts, and then they sit on the beach, and they drink pina coladas. Like, I really do want that. And you know it's never going to happen, but I'm wired that way where I always find myself rooting for the villains if there is the ability to do that. We just lost Alan Rickman this past week.
Mm-hmm.
You and I were affected by that. I mean, everyone loves Alan Rickman, but one of the first things, I think the very first thing that you and I, when we didn't like each other that much, Drab, for those that don't know, Drab and I met a while ago, about 10 years ago now, in Phoenix, Arizona. We were doing some radio, and Drab was already there, and I was part of a show that was coming to town, and Drab didn't know us, and we didn't know him. And one of the first things where we had some common ground was Die Hard, where I figured out that you were a huge Die Hard fan, and you figured out that I was a huge Die Hard fan. And Hans Gruber in Die Hard, I rooted for Hans Gruber the entire time.
Come on.
Until, when he goes to blow up the building, that's when I stopped rooting for him. But even when he's executing...
Because Carl was up there, he didn't care.
Takagi. Even when he's doing that, I'm like, this guy's so put together, is so resourceful, like he's just so in this character. I want him to get away with the money. And at the same time, I'm rooting for John McClane, but Darth Vader. I rooted for Darth Vader the whole movie. Like, all these bad guys... Is that what I'm doing in Con Air, or do you think that we're supposed to not identify with the criminals, but want them to accomplish their goal?
Well, I think you want them to have their party, and I think that that's kind of the way they set it up, where they are supposed to be these, as they say in the movie, the worst of the worst criminals.
Yeah.
But they set them up that they're so damn fun and entertaining. There is a party that says, I just want these guys to be happy. I want them to kind of see this through. Now, I didn't feel that way for Cyrus the Virus. I hated Cyrus when I watched the movie. Okay,
evil.
so I cannot root for Cyrus.
But who else? Think about in the movie. Who does anything evil in the movie? Like
Cyrus,
Danny Trejo.
Billy Bedlam's not.
Well, the problem is my theory goes to hell when they start opening up on the cops that are like driving into the plane. But when they get on the plane and they're shooting the rope, I'm saying, yes, shoot the rope. I don't want you to get caught. And then you have that moment with the Sweet Home Alabama moment where they're dancing around. I'm happy. Like, I'm happy during that they got away, even though Baby O is going to die and Cameron Poe is going to show you that God exists.
I do like that Sally, the moment she has a free second, or he has a free second, he runs and puts on a dress and then starts dancing, and it's just way over the top, like characterization of a gay man.
Yeah, of course.
And it's just so much fun. And when you're watching them dance with Sweet Home Alabama, you're like, well, this is a really good time.
I mean, everyone there is just such an Diamond Dog can't just be a black guy that's a prisoner. He's got to be a black supremacist that wants to blow up the NRA building. I love it.
Nathan Jones, a.k.a. Diamond Dog, former general of the Black Guerrillas. He blew up a meeting of the National Rifle Association saying, and I quote, they represented the basest negativity of the white race. He wrote a book in prison called Reflections in a Diamond Eye. New York Times called it a wake-up call for the black community. They're talking to Denzel for the movie.
And it's one of the things we talked about. In fact, we can hear it right here. We talked about with Brian Truitt of the USA Today. The 90s were a different time, and they enabled you to do some of these things.
Well, I think it's gone. I mean, I think there's a couple of different things. I think the internet probably didn't help. Giving rise to everybody with an opinion and a Twitter account. I think. I don't think there's the appreciation for that kind of camp. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of people that just want to dissect every scene of The Force Awakens and take all the fun out of it, or do like it the first time, but then on the fifth time finally figure out, it's not good, just to be cool. I think this is a thing where it knew what it was. It knew it wasn't going to be serious. It knew it was just going to be, it's going to be, a bunch of criminals capture a plane and then, crash it in Las Vegas. That sounds like the craziest movie that would never even be made right now. But it did 20 years ago, and it was a hit. 20 years doesn't seem like a very long time. But I think in terms of movies and pop culture at this point, it is. I mean, it's just it's like night and day.
Let's talk a little bit about what he said there, Drab, and let's talk a little bit about where we are currently. And there's some more of that I want to get into here in a second. Do you think that one of the reasons why that we look so fondly back on that movie is where we were in our lives, but not only where you and I were, like we were younger and things seemed more simple. You didn't have bills, you didn't have mortgage, all this stuff. But it's also, representative of the fact that you could have the gay character in a dress being over the top. You could have the white character say, hell yes, the skinny Negro crackhead stuff, I meant it. You could have all that. I don't think you can have it now because of where our headspace is and how we're offended and how we're outraged and how we take movies so seriously. I think maybe that's one of the reasons why you and I and people of our ilk are drawn to movies like Con Air.
You're definitely right, because they went out of their way to kind of make an over-the-top generalization of every single character. And now,
including Cameron Poe, by the way.
Right, and now with, because he's kind of a hick from Mobile, Alabama. Nowadays, that would all be tapered back much, much more. And we cannot have as much fun in this movie. There might be a gay character or an angry black man, but not to the level in this movie where they just put it all on the line and said, we don't care what you think. There's not going to be any backlash because there wasn't Twitter and there wasn't Facebook. And if you did, you were the small minority of the people that would write a letter. And it just didn't matter at that
nobody.
time.
I mean, that letter's not going to be posted someplace for other people to then make copies of that, whatever the the comparable would be to retweeting.
Right, and a journalist isn't going to get their hands on that letter and quote it in the newspaper. It just wouldn't happen, so these things were less of an issue as they seem to be today. I think there is something to that where the story that we want to tell, we cannot tell in 2016 because of the era that we are in, with instant backlash of you're a racist or you're a pig or you're a sexist, and you're not allowed to have any fun.
And Brian, again, this is Brian True from the USA Today. He speaks to that further when we talk about the internet and how it's changed the way that we watch movies.
I think the internet gives us the outlet, and it provokes us to be shittier than we normally are. I mean, I think it kind of it puts like a microscope on our shittiness. Cause
it really does.
It's much bigger and much more grand. I think we can enjoy stuff a lot. I mean, you think about like movies like The Goonies and things that we grew up with in the '80s that were just like. These were things that I still love, and Ewoks and Return of the Jedi, and things we grew up with that like were part of our pop culture diet. Now are shit on by everybody because everybody's like, oh well, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. I just think we can enjoy things better. We didn't overthink everything. We didn't, after we got out of Gremlins, we didn't have a Twitter account to go talk about, well, how stupid is this where we can't feed something after midnight or throw water on it? How could it take a bath? Just overthink everything. I just think it was a time, the 80s and 90s were kind of the last gasp before, everybody got shitty.
I think that's some great insight, and I think that, Drap, I don't know, look, I like talking about movies, right? Like, I like analyzing movies. I like doing what we're doing right now. But to go frame by frame over Star Wars and then to eviscerate J.J. Abrams about the fact that I don't think that it's allowing the people that make the movies to be in a creative space, which is bad. But is there an argument to be made that because there are so many people paying attention and so many critics out there, people that aren't qualified like you or I, that weren't trained, that this ups the game for movie makers because they do have to make, back in 1997, you made a Captain America movie, it was going to be a pile of crap. You can't make a pile of crap Captain America movie anymore. That's got to be at least a decent movie. I don't like where we are right now with everybody having this negative, harping voice on the internet. But do you think in a weird way it's bred some more quality in the industry?
It's a tough question to answer because this is type of movie where this is just supposed to be a fun movie, and it's not supposed to be taken that seriously, and we're not supposed to I don't think we're supposed to break it down like we are 20 years later and saying, oh, this is what we could do back then and we can't do it anymore because of the era we're in. I think the Con Air movie was made just to have fun. It wasn't made to slight anybody. It wasn't made to generalize any characters or any different groups out there. It was just a simple movie where here's the good guy, here's the bad guy. This is your blink reaction to why you like this person and why you don't like this person. And there wasn't any harm put in this at all. So would it be made today? No, because I think the first thing that people think of today is, who am I going to offend?
Right. The first, when Carolla, do you know that I'm an Adam Carolla fan?
I had not heard that.
I had Adam Carolla on my radio show, and he had a quote that said, comedians used to take the microphone and think, what should I say? Comedians now take the microphone and think, what should I not say? And I think that embodies what you're talking about. Here's where I'll disagree with you just when it comes to Con Air about agenda. There are 2 agendas being voiced in that movie. But guess what they do? They bicker with each other. They go back and forth. Now, you could say that Malloy is painted out to be, you know, the a-hole, and maybe in that instance, like his conservative views or whatever they are, they're painted as villainous. But at the end, Larkin and Malloy are buddy-buddy. You know, I never liked that car anyway. So I think in their own kind of almost ham-fisted way, there was a little bit of agenda there, but it's not like liberals attacking American Sniper and conservatives attacking, what's the Ice Princess movie where she's a lesbian? Frozen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, people assign all this, and half the time it's because there is agenda. There wasn't that in Con Air, and if it was balanced out by each other.
And what was the other agenda that caught your eye? You said there were 2 things, political agendas that they talked about.
Larkin, clearly his liberal philosophy about how the system is creating these monsters. I can point a few fingers if you want. The fact he's out recycling his sandals. Like, he was being painted in a very liberal way.
Yeah.
Which brings us, of course, to the elephant in the room, and that is the beige suit. One of the things that you need to know about Drab and I don't know why this is we both share a mutual, how can I put this, obsession with giant suits. When guys wear like big boxy suits or like rumpled suits, when it doesn't look right. And when it's in a movie and you have wardrobe and there's just so much of a budget, it's always funny when there's a suit that stands out. Of course, our favorite suit, Drab, is from Rocky Balboa, the gigantic maroon sport coat that Sylvester Stallone is wearing in that film. This probably is a close second for me.
Well, Stallone in Balboa is wearing a suit because he's got like a size 62 chest. And
so he's enormous.
He needs a giant suit to cover his body. John Cusack is a tiny guy, from what I know, and his suit is the same size as Stallone's.
And like, there's he's wearing the same suit the whole day. We were talking with Tiger Anderson-Jones in the interview with him, and he's like, look, this happens over we shot for 4 months, but this happens over the course of hours. And so you just see so much of this suit, and it's the worst color ever. It's beige. It's frumpled. It's rumpled. Like, there's wrinkles in it. And there's just scenes where he's like walking off to do something that's important, and all I can think about is the suit and his dumb shoes. And I really need people to do this. Go watch Con Air and look for John Cusack's shoes. They are ridiculous. I think they're Birkenstocks. I'm not positive. I'm obsessed with what these shoes are because he's like wearing sandals. And I think that's why Duncan Malloy gets all over his ass when they're first meeting, because like he has his legs crossed and he's telling him about how the prison makes the prisoners. And he's got these moccasins that he's like kicking back and forth. I've never heard anyone bring it up. I've never heard anyone mention it. It's gone completely unnoticed. But when we said, Drabber, that we were going to talk about the giant tan suit, I don't know about you. I got dozens of tweets. People were fired up. Apparently, it's a polarizing thing about the movie.
In a movie full of superstars, the giant suit, it gets top billing. It really does. Well, it kind of fits his character. I mean, he is kind of disheveled officer, and Malloy is more of the put together. He's got the nice ass kicker car. His suit is very
hard charger.
If you look at his suit, it's tailored and he's looking sharp. And then Larkin's wearing the rumpled suit and the Birkenstocks.
So you think
I think it's on
definitely
purpose.
was intentional?
Well, look, the '90s was a terrible time as far as fashion. For suits
look at
goes.
what Chandler wears on Friends. If you ever need to know that,
they were not tailored properly. But I think the fact that it was rumpled was on purpose.
I love it. I love the suit, and every time we bring it up, people love to talk about it. Just mention the fact that we interviewed Tiger Anderson-Jones, who played Blade in Con Air, and of course he's the one that yelled, "Shut the fuck up, you freak, we're gonna die," to Garland Green as he's singing "We Got the Whole World in His Hands." He has another couple lines, but apparently, and the whole interview is in our iTunes. You can listen to the whole thing. Apparently, a lot of what we didn't know this, Drab. A lot of what that he did, and a lot of what a lot of these actors did that were in this movie. They had lots of dialogue, and there was lots of back and forth. They were huge parts of this movie, And Simon West came in, or somebody came in and said, we need to focus on Malkovich and Cage, and that's it. And they just started whacking everything.
Well, I think that's kind of points back to what I brought up last episode, and not to pat myself on the back, but I did bring up the fact that it was confusing to me that later in the movie, I felt that there were just more convicts added to the movie that weren't in there before.
You did say that.
And that goes, and Blade is really one of those characters where when he screams at the end and they show him in the boneyard, he would have been in the movie. Now it makes more sense that these guys had bigger roles and they were supposed to be on the plane throughout the movie and they were cut out. And now they just show up at the end.
Here's Ty Granderson Jones speaking about an interaction he had with John Malkovich after Malkovich just found out that a bunch of his lines had been cut.
But everybody was really upset. And just to show you how generous Malkovich was, and what Star does this, he felt so bad for me when my lines were being cut that he gave me some of his lines.
Really?
Yeah. Which was basically in the boneyard when he's giving instructions of how we're going to take down the federales when they come.
Yeah.
Because Viking goes, well, what's that? And Malkovich goes, that's a rock.
That's a rock, right.
Yeah. I had to ad-lib a bunch of lines there, too, man, because when Conrad said, yo, that's a rock, and I go, yeah, a rock, duh, you big fucking dickhead, I was doing, and he'd look at me, and I mean, I was just all over the place. I'm like, somehow I'm going to create my own dialogue.
So he's talking here about a very benevolent act, Drab. That you got the star of the movie saying, "Oh, your lines are being cut. Let's do some ad lib here. Let's get you more involved." That's I don't think MC Gainey shit on John Malkovich when we interviewed him, but he said, look, he didn't want to be there. He wasn't enjoying it. This is kind of a different characterization of his presence on the set.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we talked to Ty because I think we would have gone on for eternity kind of thinking that Malkovich was the punk on set. When the way Ty broke it down is that he was one of the boys.
Yeah.
Him and Ving Rhames and the screenwriter, Scott Rosenberg.
Boys in the back.
And Ty were all very good friends. Now, the part of that stood out to me is that Nick Cage was the pretty boy, and that he was not one of the guys that was hanging out in between shoots, and he was in his trailer, or he was being the big superstar, which is a little disappointing to me because I mean, look, he's an A-list actor.
This is the pinnacle, by the way, of Nick Cage's career. You understand? Like, I'm not saying the movie, but this is when he is. There's maybe 2 or 3 guys on his level in the world. Mm-hmm. You get your own trailer. I mean, I don't. Is it him being an asshole?
Not that his own trailer, just the fact that he said specifically, I went into this shoot thinking that Nick would be one of the boys, and he really wasn't.
Yeah, that was his reaction to that. I should have probably pressed MC a little bit more about his interactions with Cage, but there's just so much there. There also was he had this. I thought this was a very interesting story. They shoot this over 4 months, but it's supposed to happen in one day. Apparently, the stuff in Vegas, when they shot it, the temperature is not at all what you thought it would have been when you saw the finished product. And this is just a credit to Movie Magic, Drab, and how they fucking plan for everything. Listen to Ty Granderson Jones talk about the Vegas strip scene when they're putting the jailbird down and how they filmed that.
There'll never be a Con Air situation ever again.
We were just talking about
where they just hire a bunch of guys and carry them for 4 months where you can make a living. Con Air bought me a house. 4 months. We started shooting in July and we ended in November. You gotta, which brings me another funny story real quick is when we crashed into Vegas, it was like 15 degrees out there. It was winter.
Are you serious?
And they're spritzing us. We're like in these big Alaska Parkers and stuff right until seconds before the director calls action, and then they spritz us down to make us look like we're sweating, and we're out there freezing our nuts off, man.
I had no idea.
We went from 115 degrees in the desert to 15 degrees in November because the story takes place over a matter of hours during this one day.
They were trying to kill you guys.
Oh yeah.
I know it's acting, and at the end of the day, it's better than swinging a hammer. It just sounds like torture, Blabber. I wonder what your psyche is after 4 months, and that's the way you're finishing things out.
Well, I mean, the movie of the year right now is The Revenant, right? With DiCaprio and what he had to go through. Acting is, nobody said it was easy.
Yeah.
Okay? You're not digging ditches, But a lot of times, it's hard, grueling work, and you're on set for hours after hours. It's the middle of the night waiting to shoot something that's taking forever, and you don't ever think about the conditions. We've seen this movie 100 times. If you would have asked me, I would probably said it. Well, it was 80 degrees in Las Vegas when they shot that. It had to have been.
It's unbelievable.
Not 15 degrees.
Right, and we've never heard that. It never even crossed my mind. It's just such interesting perspective to get. We also talked while we're talking about the interview with Ty Granderson Jones. So he had all these lines that we talked about, and a bunch of these guys had Emilio Rivera, all these guys that we know were in the movie, but you don't see them that much. To your point, Drab, that they're listed, they're in there, and they kind of pop in and out. Listen to him speaking about his lines being cut and what his response was.
The final cut of the film was really somewhat disappointing to most of us because we all got butchered.
Really?
In the editing room. Even the leads got butchered because Jerry Bruckheimer's theme was just keep the explosions and focus on Malkovich and Cage. And we had a lot of problems with the script. They had actually sent in, I think, one or two of the diehard writers. And the script was being rewritten as we were shooting. They were like revamping things, and therefore a lot of lines were being cut, and it was like a great opportunity for me. And all of my dialogue was cut, and it was very depressing. And some other actors like Emilio Rivera dialogue was cut altogether, which is why you really don't see Emilio and Con Air that much.
That's tough.
And also Doug Hutchison, who went on to star in The Green Mile. He was in it. You won't even see him in Con Air.
Man. You're cast in a movie. It's, a Bruckheimer movie. It's the biggest movie of the summer. And you do 1 million lines, and it takes 4 months, and then all your shit gets cut. I would never get over that. Like, I'm the type of person that would obsess about that forever, unless, you go on and then because of, your career takes a trajectory where you're a superstar. But I don't know how you get over something like that, Blabber. That type of investment, and then your fame, that it's tangible. It's right there. What everyone on the planet wants is to be famous, right? It's there, and then just an editing room shithead decides, we're not going to go in that direction any longer.
Well, it sounds like he just missed out on a couple of big opportunities here. And not that Ty Granderson Jones isn't a very accomplished actor. Of course he is. But like Chad just said, the goal is to get role after role after role and to become a top-of-the-line actor in your business. Well, so Ty missed out on being Baby-O, which, was a huge... Michael T went on. He's been in a zillion movies now. He's a household name, and everybody knows his face. So he just missed out on that. He lost the role. Okay. So he gets another role, tons of speaking parts, and everything is on the cutting room floor.
Man. Can you imagine?
He's barely in this movie because they cut everything out. He could be a guy that we're seeing in movie after movie after movie right now. A lot of times it doesn't matter of this guy, he's the best actor. It's all about opportunities and networking. And he's gotten screwed, and you can tell this is 20 years later. It's still bothering him today that he got a lot of his lines cut out.
But I'm telling you, it would bother me more. Like, his perspective on it seems to be, it's the nature of it. He said in the interview, if you listen to it, Con Air bought me a house. Like, the residuals are very good. I mean, let's not cry over spilled guineas coming down from up Providence. Let's not cry over spilled milk here. But if I got this radio show that I do, like, if I came in and they said, we're hiring you to do radio, here's your salary, and then the second day they're like, oh, yeah, by the way, we want you to go do production. We don't need you to speak anymore. Well, I'm still technically getting paid, and I'm still technically working in the radio industry, but that is devastating, and that's not what you were there to do. So that's the one part, and again, no one is going to sit here and cry me a river over, actors' lives with the catering and the lifestyle, but, God, that's got to be taxing, especially with patients. Drab and I worked on a TV show for about, 6 months? And it was a sports show just locally here in Washington, D.C. And if we had to do a second take, I was pissed. If we had to do a second take, I'm like, what was wrong with that? Can we get out of here, please? I hate this. I hated the minutia. Let's fix this light. Let's do this. And there was nothing. We filmed a half an hour TV show in about, 90 minutes?
Something like that.
It shouldn't be the case. Like, if it's a good TV show, and I think it actually did well. We got the hell out of there as soon as we could because we don't know what we're doing. But I just, months and months and months, and then you have all this dialect, and you're in a movie with John Malkovich, and you have scenes with him, and then it all just goes away.
And it disappears, and nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Otherwise.
No one would ever know.
Right.
The only people that would know are him and Scott Rosenberg and Ving Rhames. By the way, get him to get Scott Rosenberg on the show.
We would love that. We'll work on that for an upcoming episode.
All right, Blabber, we asked for this, and maybe it's time to get to it. We like interaction. It's difficult in the podcast medium unless you're, Corolla or Rogan or the Nerdist or whatever, and you just have that many listeners, and they'll just call whenever you tell them. But we want to do a segment on the show called Jail Mail, where we take emails, questions, comments, and queries, either for us about the show, about Con Air, segments you'd like brought up, whatever, right, Jeremy? We're pretty open-minded.
Yep, whatever you like to talk about with Con Air, just email us.
Yep, so we'll get to that right now.
It's time for Jail Mail on the Con Air Cast. Email Chad and Drab at conaircast@gmail.com. Convicts.
Here we go. Boys, if you could watch a prequel of Con Air that gave the backstory on only one character, would you pick Cyrus the Virus, Swamp Thing, or Diamond Dog? I left out Johnny 23 because that's just 2 hours of rape. Adam M. Yeah. Although Drab would probably watch a film like that. I think most people would not. That's a great question, Drab. And this is something I think we talked about on Flight 1 that we wanted to do. And maybe this is a longer segment where we can do it in a future episode. But as far as prequels go, I think the one that I brought up was Billy Bedlam. I wanted to see a prequel on Billy Bedlam. I think it's a no-brainer to do a Cyrus the Virus one would be a no-brainer. But I think, didn't you say it's Buscemi, right? Like,
for me, it would be
Garland Green.
It would be Garland Green because nothing interests me more than serial killers, and I want more of the mindset of what's going on with Garland because he honestly believes what he's doing or what he did was not that crazy, and he's very charming in the movie. I want to see what he was like while he was alone.
What led him to the back of that truck?
Yeah, what got him strapped up inside the stretcher there with the mask put on top of him. He's a very interesting character. And also, there's a part of me that wants to see more of Cameron Poe. I want to know, Tricia comes up to Cameron and says, that's the old Cameron Poe.
Yeah.
There's something in his backstory where he was a maniac, he was a drunk, and he used to beat the shit out of people.
I'm not kidding you. How about, Prison Break was a show? Do Cameron Poe the prison years. Where he's just in prison, what he had to do while he was in there. Now, there was a direct question here, so this is very difficult because Cyrus the Virus, Swamp Thing, or Diamond Dog, I would love a prequel on all of those. I think those are three of our favorite characters. I'm going to say Diamond Dog just because Cyrus the Virus has been in prison for most of his life, as we know.
Right.
Diamond Dog blows up an NRA building. Like, we already know that he has some crazy-ass shit. He clearly, his racism was built up in some way, shape, or form. But again, likable in the movie. Yeehaw! It's a means to my end, my white friend. I think that would be the one.
And I wouldn't mind seeing Swamp Thing transporting cocaine over the ocean and being into some rough stuff that he said his character got into.
Yeah, it'd be like Miami Vice with Jamie
Miami
Foxx
Vice with Swamp Thing.
Colin Farrell. You know what? That's the name of the movie. Let's start a GoFundMe. Miami Vice with Swamp Thing. Hey, Chad and Drab, love the podcast. Both the first episode and the full interview segments are an absolute must listen. I can't wait to see what's in store. Something always bugged me about Con Air. Cameron Poe points out in the beginning those pink coconut things made him quite popular, and Baby-O sure does love them. But the main plot point during the movie is Baby-O is a diabetic, and in such bad shape that missing one injection almost kills him. It's always made me laugh, especially since there's no real reason to mention the coconut things. See you on the Jailbird, Alex M.
Pink coconut things.
Do you think that the pink coconut things were something that... By the way, if we ever do make a shirt, that would be the shirt that I would like.
I would love that.
A black shirt with just two pink coconut things on the front.
Well, I think it's a done deal. I think we have to make them now.
I don't know why that makes me laugh so much.
I mean, maybe he's a diabetic because he can't stop eating the pink coconut things.
Hey, Baby-O wasn't a diabetic before I got locked up, but I filled him up full of so many pink coconut things that he almost died on the plane, and maybe that's why he stays on the plane,
right?
Because he knows he fucking turned him into a diabetic. Yeah. That's a great question. Do you think the pink coconut? Do you think that they were supposed to come back around and revisit that later in the show? Because you're right, Drab. It does stick out to you. It's almost like the bunny, where it's an ongoing bit, and you feel like maybe that's something that got let off on the cutting room floor. Like at the end, they share a pink coconut thing or something like that.
Oh,
or
that would be awesome.
Trisha Poe pulls out some pink coconut things out of her purse.
They should have done that at the very end of the movie. By the way, something that
By the way, I'm sorry, I don't mean to. Please finish that thought. If we ever do a screening at Con Air, we have to give out pink coconut things to everybody in the theater.
I mean, I know where I'm going after the show, to 7-Eleven. Something that I picked up on while watching the film again. Nick Cage stays on the plane because he's an Army Ranger. In the very opening scene of the movie, the general, whoever he's talking to or is dismissing them, says, never leave a fallen comrade behind, no matter what the odds are the enemy. That's the very first thing that he says in the movie. And that sets the whole scene, or the whole time, for Nick Cage
not get off the plane.
Not being off the plane. And I didn't even realize that until the very end.
Army Rangers have a proud history. Since the 1700s, Rangers have led the way in every major confrontation in which the United States has been involved. You men are a credit to that fine heritage, and I'm sorry to see you go. But you've served your country well, and you've displayed the ability to fight on to the Ranger objective and complete its mission, never leaving behind a fallen comrade, no matter what the odds or the enemy. I thank you. America thanks you. And I wish you luck wherever you go. And remember, Rangers lead the way.
You don't think it's because he turned him into a diabetic? What about my theory?
That wasn't in the script. Nick Cage put that opening scene in the movie himself. He
did?
Yes, that was all his idea. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if that wasn't in the script, then it would be a little bit more of a head scratcher. Like, all right, I love you, baby-o, but I have a wife and kid that's more important to me. These assholes are going to get us killed. I got to get off this plane.
I thank you. America thanks you. And I wish you luck.
Rangers, lead the way.
Roll out. That's what it sounds like.
Optimus Prime?
Yeah.
Guys, could Cameron Poe have cured cancer with 10 more years in prison? He learned Spanish, invented CrossFit with his handstand push-ups in his time in prison already. Mike C. Yeah, and he learned origami, right?
Yep.
He learned how to make little birds.
Mi esposa y yo vamos a tomar unas margaritas en el yate, por favor.
Yeah, that whole prison scene is so incredible because...
Does it make you feel like a bag of awful? Because he's in prison, like, doing all this great stuff, and I don't do anything with my life?
It's partly.
Yeah.
But it sets the tone for the whole movie here, where you only have a few minutes to kind of grab someone's attention when a movie starts, and you can see his character growing throughout this entire prison sentence. He gets a Spanish book, and he's, like, trying to read it, and then the next scene he's like speaking fluent Spanish. Well, he's just like growing as a person, and with the origami and now the push-ups all the time. I just love the prison scene.
Well, he could be bitter, that shows you his high character that he used that prison time. Did you wonder about his decision to not meet his daughter while he's in prison? I wasn't going to have those love-starved stranglers around. See her and my daughter, no way. Like, I always thought that was odd that you have a daughter for 9 years or whatever it is, 8 years, and you never meet her?
Cameron Poe.
Yes, ma'am.
You know you're still under full restraints to your process and release from your original prison, understand?
Yes, ma'am. As long as I make it home on time, the next noon, never mind. It's my daughter's birthday.
Well, congratulations.
I got locked down 3 months before she was born. She ain't never seen me.
And why not?
No way was she gonna meet her daddy in a prison visitor room surrounded by homemade cookies and love-starved murderers.
Well, that doesn't bother me, is the fact that he didn't get a haircut.
Why would he get a haircut?
I meant to get a haircut. Well, why didn't you? You had nothing else to do for the last 8 years.
Because he didn't think that she was going to be standing outside the jailbird when he was going to get off and go, clean himself up.
Why didn't he get a haircut before he got on the plane?
When he was in a cell, he went from the cell to the plane.
He's not in solitary confinement. They get haircuts in prison.
Did you notice that Baby-O is sweeping up outside of his plane, and then all of a sudden he's his roommate, he's his cellmate at the end? Yeah. Might be a long time before I see one of these. They just let you room with whoever you want. I love it. People get mad when you pick apart Con Air.
I wish you got a haircut.
I don't. I love it. I like the long flowing locks. That's what you should go for, by the way. You losing your hair a little bit?
I am.
But so just let it all grow out, and then by like Halloween, you just go as Cameron Poe.
Can I get some a wife beater and some really high waisted jeans?
Yeah, really high waisted, tight stonewashed jeans and cowboy boots. How did he get cowboy boots in prison?
I don't know.
Con Air cast. Nick Cage is a legend in Con Air. Who would play Cameron Poe in 2016? Well, we have, I asked Brian Truitt this question, and we both agreed that this would be a difficult casting choice.
There are no real dudes in Hollywood now.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, okay, well, who, I think that Han Solo shortlist came up like last week. They're like, well, who's going to be Han Solo? And it's like Miles Teller and Dave Franco and Ansel Elgort. I'm like, well, shoot me in the head, because if that's like who's going to play an iconic, rugged dude, space dude, then I don't want to watch that movie.
Yeah.
I think, but it's a different time. I mean, you had like a Nick Cage and who didn't seem like a great action star, but he did a good job in those movies back in the day. And I think it's a different kind of thing. I mean, there were dudes back then. You go all the way back to to John Wayne, and then in the 70s you had like Al Pacino, and he was a man's man, and it's just like these were like dudes you wanted to go on their adventure with.
Keitel's perfect.
Yeah, Keitel, and just like pretty much most of the cast of like Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, Bruce Willis and Travolta, even Eric Stoltz, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And but it's not there anymore, and it's kind of sad because you have. These guys aren't real guys. You can't. I mean, who would you put in a Con Air now? I mean, I don't even. Well, first of all, probably the movie wouldn't be made.
No, it wouldn't.
It just kind of it would impale itself because it couldn't wrap its head around it. But who would you put? I mean, you can put like James Franco as like Cyrus the Virus. That'd be a terrible movie.
All right, Drab. So that I agree with a lot of what was said there. Can you even cast? I mean, Andrew Garfield is Spider-Man. I feel like you have to be whisper thin, like giant hair, like androgynous. Miley Cyrus looks exactly like Justin Bieber. I feel like Nick Cage's and the Nick Cages of the world, do they get to make movies anymore? If your name isn't Vin Diesel or The Rock, do you get to be like a big, strong action hero movie guy anymore? Or do they? Because here's what I think they like to do. They like to take the guys that you don't believe. Adam Driver is Kylo Ren. What's his name from The Office is in the Benghazi movie. I feel like they love taking those guys and then making them into the action hero.
They do, but here's what you need to remember. Nick Cage at the time was not a full-blown action star. If you think of Nick Cage now, yes.
Hold on.
Con Air was one of his first real action movies.
I think The Rock was before Con Air.
The Rock was before Con Air. It came out just before Con Air.
Right.
Since then, he's done Face Off, All the National Treasures. Every almost movie since then really has been Nick Cage, the action star. He was just transitioning to the action star. He was known for Leaving Las Vegas, Moonstruck, Raising Arizona. Those are not action movies. So this was really kind of the development of Nick Cage, the action star. Now, if you ask me, I would say, oh, yeah, of course. You got to put like Chris Hemsworth in there. And that's the logical choice.
And you know what? Chris Pratt going from being the tubby guy on The Office and then becoming Star-Lord is one of like the most enjoyable movie experiences I've had. So yeah, it does work. But is there a guy that can play? If we're recasting Con Air right now, can you pick a Cameron Poe?
I can't. I would say Hemsworth would be my number one choice, but again, that's easy because he's Thor.
Yeah, and no disrespect to Nick Cage, Hemsworth looks like a model. Like Nick Cage, if you saw Nick Cage walking around, I'd be like, that's a good-looking guy. But he's not a model. You know what I mean? I also feel like if you saw Nick Cage, if he had a few extra pounds on him, he doesn't because he's a fitness freak, like, you could just see him in Wegmans, and he wouldn't blow you away. The guy that I picked, and I don't think you're going to like this because you think I'm just a fanboy, Barenthal. John Barenthal.
I need a bigger star. He's a great actor. He's not a household name yet.
Okay. Nick Cage, he's really famous.
He's
The
very
Walking Dead. I mean, he's in Sicario. Yeah. He's going to be the Punisher. That guy's in a lot of. You're right, though. Nick Cage. When Nick Cage made this movie, he was a top 3 star in Hollywood.
Right. And now The Rock had a lot to do with that because that was made. $400
not Dwayne The Rock.
No, the
Sean
movie
Connery.
made $400 million back in 1996.
Of course it did. That's back when movie tickets were reasonably priced. How about this? We know we have a Flight 3 booked. It will depart. We're going to unload the transponder onto that Scenic Tours plane, and then we're going to lift the jailbird up yet again.
One of these days, we're going to talk about the ridiculous ending of Con Air.
We have to get to that. Ridiculous, but we love the ridiculousness.
Yes.
Yes?
I agree with that.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
I agree with that.
How about this? Let's recast Con Air next episode. What do you think?
Each character?
Let's pick the characters we want to recast. Clearly, Ving Rhames, John Malkovich, Nick Cage, John Cusack. Who else? Billy Bedlam. You can't make the cut?
No.
Garland Green.
Trisha. You need a love interest.
Okay. Trisha Poe. I don't think you can recast Garland Green. Maybe
you bring Steve Buscemi back?
I'll just bring Steve Buscemi back. I mean, he's just being Nucky Thompson. I mean, it's a pretty great role, but I think he could just... I mean, he's going to have the mask on for most of it anyway. You're not going to tell he's aged. All right, let's do that. And also, we'll take your jail mail on that as well. All right? So if you want to recast Con Air with us in the next episode, conaircast@gmail.com. My whole thing is, Drab, is that I'm so stuck in my own kind of warped view of time. I don't view 97 as that long ago for me. So I would maybe just see how many of these guys I could just get to play the roles again, even though now they're not in their 30s or their 50s.
Who definitely died? Malkovich?
Yes.
Johnny 23?
Neo Banty Trace. Well, he has his arm ripped off. I
guess he could come back. They say Diamond Dog dies. I don't know if he dies or not.
Remember,
he gets blown off the fire truck, right?
Yeah, is it the motorcycle hits him? Remember when he jumps off the motorcycle, you see him go, and then there's an explosion. Yeah. So he could live, but we don't. I think it's unlikely. Billy Bedlam definitely dies. We know how. Dave Chappelle dies. Dave Chappelle could do it, right? Black don't crack. I mean, he looks exactly the same, doesn't he? I mean, technically, Ving Rhames looks pretty much the same too, doesn't he?
But we would definitely. I think we have to recast Cameron Poe.
All right, we'll do that.
And that hurts me.
It does. It hurts me too. We're down to the.
I mean, but Nick Cage could always go back. We do know that 70% of prisoners, once they get out of jail, always go back. So it could happen again.
What you have is a walking, talking reason to rehabilitate you. Hey, I want Guard Bishop on the show.
Guard Bishop.
Give me Guard Bishop. Yes, she's been in a million movies.
Okay.
And I want Nick Cage on the show.
I'm working on it.
I know you will. Driver, this has been tremendous. Thank you again.
Another fun episode.
A lot of hard work. A lot of people don't know this, but it's easy for me to come in here and yap. Drab does most of the heavy lifting and the editing and all that stuff. So the least you can do for him is follow us on Twitter @ConAirCast, Facebook.com/ConAirCast, and please subscribe on iTunes and take the time, convicts. 5 stars, leave us a little review. That stuff helps us and it keeps us on the charts where we need to be. All right?
Until next time, sayonara.
Pink coconut things.
Thanks for listening to Con Aircast. Follow Chad Dukes on Twitter @ChadDukes. Follow Drab T-Shirt @Drab T-Shirt. Always remember and never forget, put the bunny back in the box. Put the bunny back in the box.